Hello and welcome back to Jekyll and Hyde Annotate with an Examiner. We are now on Chapter 7, which is Incident at the Window. This is the shortest chapter in the whole novel, but it's really important. There are some really key quotations in it, so let's get into it. If just before we start you might want to pause here and go and grab your copy of the text, a highlighter, a pen and a notepad where you can make a record of all of the key quotations that we go through, so you can use it later on when you do some revision or assessment work. Okay, so let's get started. Incident at the window. It chanced on Sunday, when Mr. Utterson was on his usual walk with Mr. Enfield, that their way lay once again through the by-street, and that when they came in front of the door, both stopped to gaze on it. "Well," said Enfield, "that story's at an end at least. We shall never see more of Mr. Hyde." So the story comes back to its initial scene. So just like chapter 1, and this time the absence of Hyde only increases the sense of danger about this house, almost like a calm before a storm. Now that the street and the house have been tarnished with the story of Hyde's violence, there is no going back to the innocence of Utterson and Enfield's first Sunday walk. "I hope not," said Utterson. "Did I ever tell you that I once saw him and shared your feeling of repulsion?" "It was impossible to do the one without the other," returned Enfield. "And by the way, what an ass you must have thought me not to know that this was a back way to Dr. Jekyll's. It was partly your own fault that I found it out, even when I did. So Hyde's house is through the back passage, so almost like the garden, but for us in the normal conventional houses in the UK, it's almost like the garden entry point. So the back of Jekyll's house is the way that is the entrance to Hyde's house. "So you found it out, did you?" said Utterson. "But if that be so, we may step into the court and take a look at the windows. To tell you the truth, I am uneasy about poor Jekyll, and even outside, I feel as if the presence of a friend might do him good." The court was very cool and a little damp and full of premature twilight, although the sky high up overhead was still bright with sunset. So they're going to visit Jackal by his window. When they arrive outside his house, the scene is described as having a premature twilight. Now, this again links to the theme of secrecy that we have spoken about in a great amount of length in previous videos, as the noun twilight has two meanings. So the first meaning is that the soft glowing light from the sky when the sun is below the horizon, and the second meaning is a time or state of obscurity, ambiguity, or gradual decline. So, again, creating this air of mystery. So this gradual decline could be foreshadowing the decline of Jekyll. The middle one of the three windows was halfway open, and sitting close beside it, taking the air with an infinite sadness of mien, like some disconsolate prisoner, Utterson saw Dr. Jekyll. This is a really key quotation, so you might want to make note of premature twilight on your notepad and like some disconsolate prisoner. So this use of simile here shows that Jekyll is stuck inside this lab. The simile shows that he has become a physical prisoner, as well as a prisoner to his own internal duality. So we've discussed the duality of man in previous episodes, and how it's very much the moral of the story that everybody has a duality within them, a good side and an evil side. So that's where the theme of hypocrisy comes in, the fact that everybody judges people despite them having their own flaws. This room that Jekyll is in is symbolic of the way he has locked away his personality and kept his friends at arm's length. "What, Jekyll!" he cried. "I trust you are better." "I am very low, Utterson," replied the doctor drearily. "Very low. It will not last long, thank God." "You stay too much indoors," said the lawyer. "You should be out, whipping up the circulation like Mr. Enfield and me." So whipping up the circulation means going for a long walk, enjoying the outdoors. "This is my cousin, Mr. Enfield, Dr. Jekyll. Come, now get your hat and take a quick turn with us." So instead of asking him why he's feeling so low, He just asks him to come for a walk with them to make himself feel better. So again, almost like masking the fact that this person feels low. This person who's a friend to him feels low. So we see this recurring theme with Utterson, how he really doesn't discuss feelings, he doesn't discuss emotions, he doesn't get into the personal matters of people, even though they are his closest friends. You are very good, sighed the other. I should like to very much, but no, 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 it is quite impossible. I dare not, but indeed, Utterson, I am very glad to see you. This is really a great pleasure. I would ask you and Mr. Enfield up, but the place is really not fit. Why then, said the lawyer good-naturedly, the best thing we can do is to stay down here and speak with you from where we are. That is just what I was about to venture to propose, returned the doctor with a smile. But the words were hardly uttered before the smile was struck out of his face and succeeded by an expression of such abject terror and despair as froze the very blood of the two gentlemen below. There's some really key quotations in this section, so you might want to make note of these in your notepad. So the smile was struck out of his face. The use of dysphomistic language. Now, dysphomistic language is harsh, abrupt language, the opposite of euphemistic language. Euphemistic language is purposefully subtle language, whereas dysphomistic language is purposefully harsh language. So the use of dysphomistic language shows how abrupt the change of expression on Jekyll's face is. It's almost like Jekyll has no control over himself. The word struck here implies this really harsh, abrupt change. We've also got expression of such abject terror. So abject terror, you might want to, terror and despair, you might want to make a record of this quotation as well on a notepad if you are doing that. This incident shows that Jackal is suffering from something which he cannot control, and that the two men are deeply shocked at the transformation. So the word terror shows how scared and afraid he is. The word despair shows also how upset and desperate he feels, and also how he has no control over what he's going through right now. They saw it but for a glimpse, for the window was instantly thrust down, but that glimpse had been sufficient, and they turned and left the court without a word, in silence. So again, we've got the men being silent despite their close relationship. The two men don't discuss what they see, again linking it to key themes such as secrecy, reputation, and repression. 2. They traversed the by-streets, and it was not until they had come into a neighbouring thoroughfare, where even upon a Sunday that there were still some stirrings of life, that Mr. Utterson at last turned and looked at his companion. They were both pale, and there was an answering horror in their eyes. God forgive us, said Mr. Utterson. So we've got the repetition here of God forgive us. The use of religious language here shows a different side to these men of science and rational thinking. So we've not seen this sort of religious side to them. They're clearly in need of forgiveness from God. So you could argue, or you could ask, I always encourage you guys to be critical in your thinking, because being critical, being opinionated, having an opinion is really highly awarded by the exam boards. So you could argue that that perhaps they've got their own secrets, their own hidden secrets that they need forgiven for by God. It also shows their desperation to belong to a religion. So they are clearly in need of forgiveness from God in order to feel at peace and safe from the internal torment that they're all feeling. The repetition of this statement emphasizes the desperate need for redemption and to have God on their side. So the need for God on their side is really, really apparent with the use of the repetition. But Mr. Enfield only nodded his head very seriously and walked on once more in silence. So that's the end of this chapter. Like I said, it's a really short chapter, but there are some really key things that happen within this chapter. In the next series, we will be looking at Chapter 8, The Last Night. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.